The air inside the Kabul forward operating base felt tight enough to choke on. For weeks, the mountains had swallowed patrols' whole ambushes, waiting in shadowed passes, Marines returning bloodied, if they returned at all. Boots thudded against the plywood floor of the operations tent, slow and deliberate, as Gunnery Sergeant Elena Torres stepped inside. She was small, quiet, almost forgettable at a glance. Nothing about her appearance matched the stories whispered late at night. A few Marines lifted their eyes from their maps. At a nearby table, a group of Navy SEALs leaned back in their chairs, smirking. "That's her? That's the one everyone keeps talking about?" One muttered, laughter rolling through the cluster. To them, she looked like any other Marine, too lean, too silent to be anything special. At the front of the tent, General Marcus Steele straightened. His uniform was heavy with ribbons, his voice notoriously capable of breaking a man's confidence before battle ever did. He had heard the rumors too, but he didn't believe in rumors. He believed in results. And the quiet woman standing before him didn't look like results. The room buzzed with disbeliefs, knickers, murmurs, doubts muttered under breath. "That's supposed to be the one they call—" No one dared finish the sentence. Steele's eyes narrowed. He was old school, and he despised legends. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories so you never miss these powerful true accounts. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from today. General Marcus Steele had served more than 3 decades. He could read a room like a sniper reads the wind, and what he saw now made something in his gut tighten. The moment Torres walked in, the air shifted. Marines straightened subconsciously. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the SEALs went still long enough to cut a glance her way. Steele didn't like that. He didn't like whispers, or mystique, or ghosts with rank and name tags. He shoved back from the table, boots slamming into the floor. The tent silenced instantly. His glare locked on Torres. "You," he barked. "Step forward." She obeyed without hesitation. Every gaze tracked her movements. Though smaller than most of the men around her, she carried herself with a quiet steadiness that didn't bend under scrutiny. Name, unit. Steele's voice snapped like a blade. "Gunnery Sergeant Elena Torres." "First recon, sir. Textbook perfect, but not good enough. Not for him." He stepped closer until his shadow stretched across her face. "Call sign." The reaction was immediate. A hush fell through the tent. Marines stiffened. A SEAL shifted in his chair. This was the moment they'd all been waiting for. Rumor brushing against truth, Torres didn't flinch. Didn't blink, her chin lifted a fraction. Specter 6. The word sliced. Through the room like steel through canvas, silence swallowed everything. Steele had seen that call sign. Buried in classified report stories, he dismissed as exaggeration. But now the myth stood right in front of him, unshaken. Around the room, smirks vanished. Doubt evaporated. The legend had a pulse, breath, and steady eyes. Specter 6, not a whisper anymore. A fact. Even the loudest SEAL who had been lounging smugly moments earlier sat rigid now, hands braced on his knees. Junior officers exchanged nervous glances. They remembered the after-action fragments. A Marine who disappeared into Kabul's alleyways and reappeared behind enemy lines, turning unwinnable chaos into clean victories. The documents had always been stamped the same, _unverified. Now the source of those unverified miracles stood 20 feet away. Steele's expression hardened. He'd seen heroes rise and break in the same night. Myths got soldiers killed. Myths made men reckless. But this myth, this one unnerved him. Specter 6, he repeated, tasting the weight of it. The tent felt carved from stone. No laughter now. No whispers. Only respect thick as smoke. A SEAL muttered under his breath, not quiet enough. No wonder they're all still alive. Stories once dismissed as fantasy suddenly made sense. Steele stared into Torres's eyes, searching for weakness. There was none. Only controlled fire. The kind forged under pressure. "I hope, Sergeant," Steele said coldly. "That name isn't just smoke." "It isn't, sir." And for the first time, Steele believed it. Weeks earlier, the day the legend was born on Kabul's narrow, Alice had already written her story long before this briefing. It should have been a routine patrol. Dust rising from the cracked stone, children watching from doorways with unreadable eyes. Torres walked point, rifle steady. She didn't trust the silence. In Kabul, silence wasn't peace. It was warning. The trap detonated without a whisper. Gunfire erupted from rooftops, shattering windows and ripping the street apart. Marines dove for cover behind crumbling walls and burnt-out vehicles. Radio chatter cracked with panic. "Man down. We've got wounded." Rounds chewed into stone inches from Torres's face. Her squad was pinned, bleeding, trapped with no retreat. Enemy fighters covered every angle. Rooftops, alleys, doorways. She pressed into the rubble, heartbeats steadying. Fear swirled around her, but it never touched her. She studied the overlapping fire patterns, found the one weakness, the blind gap no one else could see, and without a word, she moved. Torres crawled through debris and shattered glass, bullets slicing the air close enough to feel heat kiss her cheek. Inch by inch, breath by breath, she slipped from sight and into the maze of back alleys. She became smoke. Behind the first rooftop team, she rose, fired once clean, precise, one threat gone, then another, then another. 12 firing points fell in sequence, each shot surgical, each enemy dropping before they knew she was there in the kill zone. Marines felt the pressure shift, gunfire faltering. Confusion rippling through the attackers. "Push forward, move!" Someone yelled, and the squad surged. When Torres emerged again, dust streaked her uniform, and her rifle still radiated heat. She didn't boast. She didn't explain. She didn't have to. Not one Marine was lost. Not one. The whispers began that night. Specter 6. The Marine who crawled through hell and brought everyone home, back in the operations tent. The echo of that call sign still pressed against the walls. Steele leaned over the table, knuckles whitening over the maps. He had seen reputations crush good men. Legends made soldiers believe someone was unbreakable. And when an unbreakable Marine fell, entire units fell with them. He stepped up to her again. "You understand what you just did, Sergeant?" "Yes, sir. Marines will expect you to be invincible now. And if you fall, they'll fall with you." The tent was silent. Respect, thick and heavy, replaced the earlier mockery. Torres didn't blink. She'd heard fear dressed as warnings before. She'd lived under it every time bullets tore past her helmet in Kabul's suffocating alleys, and she was still here, unshaken. Specter 6. When Torres finally spoke, her voice was soft, but it carried the weight of forged steel. "Then I won't break." "Sir." The tent froze. Even the steady hum of the generator outside seemed to vanish. General Steele studied her in absolute silence, examining every line of her face like a commander evaluating terrain for hidden weaknesses. But what stared back wasn't arrogance or empty bravado. It was certainty. Cold, calm, unshakable certainty, the kind only molded by fire. A young lieutenant shot the general a nervous glance, half expecting Steele to erupt at her audacity. But instead, the old warfighter exhaled through his nose, slow and controlled. "You think it's that simple?" he asked, though the bite in his words had dulled. "You think it's just a matter of not breaking?" Torres didn't shift. "I don't think, sir," she said. "I know. My Marines are alive because I don't." The answer hit the room like a THUND or CLAP. The SEAL who had laughed earlier dropped his gaze to the floor. A nearby captain's jaw tightened, suddenly aware that the legend's reputation had just been backed by fact. Something in Steele's expression softened barely. The skepticism remained, but beneath it, something new flickered through the cracks. Respect reluctant, but impossible to deny, he stepped back and spoke quietly. Yet the words carried through the tent like an order carved into stone. "Very well." Specter 6. No one moved. No one breathed, The legend had just been formally acknowledged. The room shifted with it. The respect was permanent now, etched into every mind present. The silence hadn't faded when the flap of the tent snapped open. A young lieutenant hurried in, pale and breathless, clutching a folder under his arm. He dropped the report in front of General Steele. Steele scanned it, his jaw tightening with every line. When he looked up, his voice was low, but the gravity in it sank into every chest. Recon Bravo's gone dark. Last contact, 20 minutes ago. Outskirts of Kabul, no comes, no movement. High probability of ambush. A ripple of unease rolled through the Marines and SEALs. A silent unit in Kabul's outskirts wasn't simply lost. It was surrounded. Steele's gaze locked onto Torres. He didn't shout. He didn't need to, Sergeant Torres. You're on point. The words dropped like a hammer. A few SEALs exchanged glances, no mockery now. Only the uneasy realization that this was no briefing room myth. This was a blood and dust test. Torres didn't hesitate. Yes, sir. She adjusted her rifle strap and stepped forward with the quiet precision of someone preparing for another. Long march into danger. Around her, boots scraped the floor, rifles clicked into ready. Doubt still flickered in a few eyes, but so did something new, respect and curiosity. Outside, the Kabul night pulsed with tension. The convoy rolled out under red lights, engines low, gravel crunching beneath tires. Inside the armored vehicle, silence hung heavy. Torres sat near the door, helmet slightly lowered. To others, it looked like calm. To her, it was calculation reviewing ambush patterns. Blind spots, rhythms of fire she had survived before in these same alleys. At the outskirts, Steele's voice came through the radio. Specter 6. Lead them in. Torres signaled forward. They dismounted, boots hitting dirt, rifles raised. The alleys yawning open like the jaws of the city. A dog barked once in the distance. Then darkness swallowed everything. It feels like a trap, a SEAL whispered. Torres didn't answer. She lifted a handhalt. Her eyes tracked rooftops, windows, shadows. The shift in the air told her everything. Positions, she murmured, calm and surgical. Her tone steadied the entire element, and then the night erupted. The first rifle crack split the silence. A Marine dropped, dragged behind cover. Gunfire roared from every direction, windows, rooftops. Narrow alley choke points funneling death into the team. Contact. Snipers left. Top right. Someone yelled as bullets shredded stone. Marines hit the dirt. Dust, smoke, and shouting filled the tight corridors. Muzzle flashes lit the rooftops like a storm of fire. They were boxed in, but Torres didn't fold into the chaos. She pressed her back to a shattered wall, breathing steady, eyes scanning the battlefield, angles, timing, gaps. She found the one spot, that Materda half-collapsed wall, with just enough structure to climb, while others fired blindly. She moved. Cover me, she ordered crisp, knife dash sharp. No hesitation. The team shifted fire instantly. Torres sprinted low across broken stone, bullets snapping past her. She climbed hand over hand, sliding over the rooftop edge and coming up behind the first sniper team. One clean shot. The shooter fell before he knew she was there. She didn't stay. She flowed to the next position, silent, precise, vanishing into shadow. Reappearing like smoke carried by the wind. One shot. Another. Another. Below, Marines felt the pressure loosen. A SEAL caught sight of her and whispered, stunned. She's clearing them. Rooftop by rooftop, she dismantled the ambush. Move. Push left. A Marine shouted, seizing the opening she carved. The squad surged, dragging wounded, crossing gaps that minutes earlier were death traps. Above, Torres laid down controlled burst siege, shot creating another step toward survival. When the last rooftop went silent, the ambush was broken. Every Marine was alive, bloodied, shaken, but alive. Torres climbed down, boots hitting the dirt. Her rifle still radiated heat. She rejoined the formation without a word. As if she hadn't just saved an entire convoy alone, the SEALs stared openly, now no smirks left. "That's not a rumor," one whispered. "That's real." Back at base, under the wash of floodlights, medics tended to the wounded. Dust clung to uniforms. The smell of gunpowder clung to skin. Inside the operations tent, the atmosphere was transformed. The same SEALs who had laughed at her earlier now stood silent against the wall. Marines who once doubted her moved stiffly, as if standing in the presence of something larger. General Steele waited at the head of the table, arms crossed, ribbons gleaming, expression unreadable. When Torres stepped in, the room fell silent. Steele studied her, skeptical no longer. "Specter 6, he said. The call sign carried a deliberate, heavy weight. "You kept every man alive today." He didn't shout. He didn't preach. Instead, he gave her the smallest, sharpest nada gesture that meant more than medals or ribbons. The room froze. SEALs fell silent. Marines stared, reverent and unsure. Time itself seemed to bow for a heartbeat. Torres didn't smile. She simply saluted. The general returned it. Nothing more needed to be said that night. The story spread across Kabul like wildfire. Whispers turned into certainty. Young recruits carved S6 into helmets and rifle stocks. Veterans passed the story along without exaggeration. A Marine who took rooftops alone and brought every man home. Outside the barracks, Torres sat on a sandbag wall beneath the wide, star-filled sky. She cleaned her rifle with slow, steady movements. She didn't chase the legend. She didn't bask in the whispers. She thought only of the Marines still, breathing because of what had happened in those alleys. Her voice was quiet meant. "Only for the night, as long as they come home," she whispered. "The name is worth it." The wind carried her words away. Laughter drifted from a distant barracks window. Marines, live because of her. Specter 6 wasn't just a call sign anymore. It was a legacy.